China, India, Russia. Kim Jong-un is also present there. He's kind of the number two communist because our number one communist is Xi and our number two is Kim Jong-un. By the way, who did Trump meet with during his first term and tell who had the bigger nuclear button? So it turns out that this whole gang of communists and KGB types is gathering to oppose whom? The United States of America. Now, who else is joining them? India. India is currently under sanctions. Trump imposed a 50% tariff. It's clear why. Because they're buying energy resources from Russia and then simply reselling them. I'm sure that Trump will still put the squeeze on India as well, no doubt about it. Because despite the fact that they're going to meet, hug, and kiss over there, these KGB types are basically ready to kill each other. That is, China is ready to devour Putin all the way to the Urals and beyond. Kim Jong-un is clearly a vassal of China, but India doesn't have very good relations with China in this case. And at the same time, the economies of all these countries are under significant pressure at the moment. Right now, Russia's economy has already dropped by 50% because it has completely shifted to a war footing. And China's economy is also starting to crack there. We don't really know the situation from the inside, and there are certain movements happening there as well. They have their own Chinese Beijing factions that are also competing with each other. And so basically, this whole cesspool of the world, you could say, is essentially to blame for this entire war, because even socialist Europe, I believe, is kind of a secondary result, which China, together with the Russian KGB agents, has always helped to create this structure of the European Union in order to reduce the role of the United States of America. So hi, everyone. Everyone's here and connected. Alla Orlova was the first to check in. Alla, I'm always very glad to see you. Lena Clay, good evening. Tatiana Ladia, good evening. Greetings to everyone. So it turns out that this gathering of communists and KGB agents is trying to oppose the United States. But I want to remind you of some information that is becoming more or less clear. You know that Trump is now fighting with the Federal Reserve. That is, he's trying to put pressure on Powell. And now they've caught this one woman who was deceiving the IRS, and there's an investigation going on. Well, and I'm sure that in another month or two, Powell will give in anyway, because Trump is putting serious pressure on him. So, well, there are two more organizations, just so you understand. There's the World Bank and also the IMF. This is a prominent international financial institution, which is currently strategically located in the bustling capital city of Washington, D.C. This signifies that there is indeed some significant involvement within the intricate structure of the International Monetary Fund, IMF. At this present moment in time, the United States of America officially holds a substantial 16% of the voting power and shares. Japan has 6.5%, China and Germany have 5.5%, France has 4%, Italy has 3%, and so on. Just so you understand, Ukraine has about 0.5% there, but Ukraine is part of the bloc under the Netherlands. Therefore, Ukraine doesn't make any decisions at all. And if someone talks about some kind of sovereignty, I think there's no point even mentioning it, because for 33 years, there hasn't been any sovereignty. It might exist, but only on our terms, which we propose in order to resolve the issue of Ukraine, so that Ukraine can finally build a society based on the libertarian model. That's exactly what Javier Milei has started now, and there are definitely chances for this. But Trump still has a lot to do within the United States, and the same goes for many other countries. There's still a lot that needs to be done. But at the moment, he has set the goal of stopping the fighting and ending the war in Ukraine, and he is definitely sticking to this course. Despite the fact that some people say he won't do it, that he won't go through with it, that he keeps repeating himself. He did everything to surround Putin from all sides, tighten the noose around his neck, and ultimately break this KGB man. And all those honors that Trump showed him were just a last chance that they're hoping that maybe it would be possible to part ways through some kind of diplomatic means. But the fact that now these communists and KGB men have gathered together with China, and India has also tagged along, is pure showmanship, because as soon as they part ways, Trump will start talking to each of them individually again. He doesn't need these collective farms, just like he doesn't need this Soviet-style European Union, where first Ursula makes some statement, then they all gather and say yes, but then strangely, each country, Germany, Italy, and France, comes out separately with completely different positions. That's why Trump knows exactly what this means. And I think that even this gathering of KGB agents and Chinese communists looks more like the agony of the system, because the globalists have lost power in the United States of America, and now they will also start losing it on other continents. And the fact is, China has its own ambitions, Russia has its own ambitions. It's a matter of who will outmaneuver whom. China has a perfectly natural desire to devour Russia, and it is also interested ultimately in seeing Russia fall apart. But that's also in our interest, and I think it's in Trump's interest too, because Trump's mission is the decommunization of America first, and then to help other countries change their governments as well. If someone talks about interference, about not interfering in foreign affairs, Trump realized that the way the communists operate is always underhanded from within the country. They promote Islamization, let in illegal immigrants, bribe politicians, and buy up land here. There are very large territories here. China has bought up land, but now DeSantis is reconsidering the issue there to keep the situation under control. But I think they're taking this quiet approach, like boiling a frog slowly. Trump understands all of this, and he set the goal of establishing a unipolar world of a conservative libertarian model to put an end once and for all to this decaying communism, which killed 100 million people in the last century and continues to kill today. So yesterday they were saying that India is against Russia. Melania writes, oh, Melania, that's nice. All the dictators have gathered. It's a good moment to get rid of them. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea. Trump should have called about this issue. As Trump says, thank you for your attention to this matter. So yesterday they were saying that India is against Russia. Well, at the moment, India is buying some weapons and some military equipment. But we understand the level of Russian technology today, and it can't compare to the American one. And then over time, they'll end up throwing all of it away and buying American weapons because the generations have changed several times already. I like this topic, communism, communist. That was your audience, Oleg Olenek. Well, communists are barbarians. They're basically fascists. So fascism, communism, socialism, they're all synonyms. That's why humanity's task is to get rid of this infection, this cancer, because this cancer has spread to every country. And basically, at this point, it turns out that in each of the 200 countries in the world, there are socialist or semi-socialist governments in power who just plunder and, in a way, mock their own people through taxes. And then the thalassocrats start scheming among themselves. And in the end, it all ends in wars. That's it. So communism is a big problem, just like fascism. Okay, well, let's get back to the information. So what's actually happening with us? By the way, right now, Venezuela is also completely surrounded by aircraft carriers. And I'm sure that in a week or 2 or 3 for $50 million, someone will turn in this barbarian and dictator Maduro, who basically destroyed the country and became a drug lord whom America is now fighting against. But he lost the election. He only got 30%. And even that was thanks to his resources. The fact is, he usurped power. I think that soon we'll see the acting president there. I can't remember her last name, the woman who won 70% in the elections. As soon as Trump settles the issue with Venezuela once and for all, he'll definitely go after that communist Lula too, who also clearly rigged the last elections. And now he's put those shackles on Volsuera, the former president. This is usually done through the courts. Socialists always operate according to the same principle, just as Soros taught them. That is, you always have to corrupt the judges, turn them into a mafia-like structure, and then you can always overturn some laws or interfere with the executive branch. That's exactly what's happening right now in the United States of America. But we know that now Trump has declared RICO against Soros and this whole mafia. I think there's already enough material gathered here to finally set everything straight. Bodan, thank you. Respect, only 5'10". Yes, I support that too. In communism, there's nothing better for ordinary people than communism. Just look at the examples that exist today. Well, you must be writing from North Korea. If you like it there, then I think that's your success. And I wish you to be closer to the leadership so you can get something to eat, because there's nothing to eat there. If it weren't for China, everyone there would have died long ago. I think it's possible. I don't rule out that by 2028, a lot will change. Many of these leftists will fall and right-wing conservative forces will take their place. And by around 2032, there won't be China, Russia, or even the European Union anymore. That's what awaits these countries. And there, in the end, the right forces will take power into their own hands and will help their people, their nation, not the bureaucracy. And all the while, they usurp power under the guise of democracy. And democracy can also be interpreted another way. There's an interpretation that it's a tool, a set of tools to make sure power is never given up. This was invented precisely to ultimately usurp power. And all of this ends in fascism in the end. That's why humanity needs to invent some kind of political vaccine so that humanity never again returns to this situation. Now, thank God, Trump has turned the ship around and is heading in the right direction, and he will help other countries solve their problems as well. But he will not solve problems by seizing territories, as Putin does or as any dictators do, but simply through economic means. In the future, joining America will be very beneficial from an economic standpoint. I do not rule out that Ukraine itself might one day become a state of the United States. North Korea is freer than Ukraine. I'm a witness. Well, you live there, I see. You must be broadcasting straight from a cage, probably. There aren't even any phones there. How do you even communicate? Or did you escape? There will be one Ukraine. Ukraine will exist, but in alliance with the United States. Slavik, good evening. Zelensky has announced new strikes on the Russian Federation. What do you think? How much longer will Trump tolerate this? But at the moment, Trump isn't exactly forbidding it, but Zelensky could have figured it out himself and switched to Trump's side in order to try to end the fighting and finish the war together with him. But he doesn't do that because right now he's playing the same tune as the European globalists. And we remember that the cause of the war is the actions of the European globalists, socialists, Democrats here in America, and also China, the one-party communist China, which has turned its people into digital slaves. That's what he wanted to do. And now this is happening in Europe at full speed, moving in that direction, and no one there has stopped in this regard yet. But in America now, The issue is already being resolved in favor of freedom, individual freedom. Merit will be recognized, so-called meritocracy, and not just based on some DI and all sorts of minority programs. That's what has been happening for the last 50 years. Trump has already clearly put a stop to all of this, and things are moving in the right direction. So, well, we've got some bots showing up here. That's fine. Let them have their fun. We've talked about Venezuela. And by the way, Rubio made a statement and said that the Trump administration is revoking visas for Palestinian officials. And he said that in the interests of our national security, it's necessary to hold the Palestinian Authority accountable for failing to meet its obligations and for undermining prospects for peace. Now, everything is starting to fall into place. I think there will be fewer of these lunatics running around campuses in those tents. And in the end, all of this will come to a stop. And this anti-Semitism that the socialists, together with Obama and Clinton, have stirred up, at this point, the situation is already starting to even out. Trump has restored order in Washington now, and will move on to bring order to other cities. And to be honest, knowing how the socialists and communists operate, and this whole Clinton-Obama mafia, who are even ready to kill a presidential candidate, he won't give them any leeway here. And in the end, I think there really should be a tribunal over these structures that, in principle, led to the war. It was both China and Ukraine, and Russia, the KGB people, who led to the war, and also the Soros-backed socialists of Europe are to blame, as well as the Democratic Social Democratic Party, which by now has also become Islamized. All these structures must stand before a tribunal and answer for all the actions they have committed. And in the end, Ukraine must be compensated through reparations. These social globalists and KGB agents in Russia must pay reparations to Ukraine. I think that if Trump manages to restore order in America to the end, especially now that Latin America is getting involved, things are going well for Javier Milei, things are going well for Bukele, and Latin America will play a role here too. And now Trump will resolve the issue with Venezuela. And Brazil is next. The next person to be replaced will be someone from Trump's pro-conservative wing. And I think such a white swan will arrive in Ukraine too, after the fighting stops. After the war ends, I think processes will begin where the conservative wing of the United States will start acting to make Ukraine a real ally. And the candidate himself, who is going to be the manager in Ukraine, must be absolutely pro-conservative libertarian and work on the same wavelength as Trump and his team. So where is Parubi? I can't reach him. He writes, yes, Parubi was killed. There are a lot of theories about his murder. I don't even want to discuss this, because when there's a war, so many things are intertwined. Let the law enforcement agencies sort out this situation. How did you connect the flags if the countries are on different continents? Absolutely. For example, the state of Hawaii is located in the Pacific region, and it is a state of the United States of America. In the future, Ukraine could also become a state. It's not out of the question. Moreover, it could become a true island of freedom after the collapse of Europe and Russia, a real island of freedom in the future, and serve as an example for other countries. That is, it's possible. You need to build a society based on the libertarian model, like Javier Milei is doing. We need to raise the GDP above all the surrounding countries, and these currently occupied territories will themselves, through a referendum, return to a flourishing Ukraine. And this is an absolutely realistic, real scenario. Trump is expelling Ukrainian patriots from America. Well, Trump isn't expelling them. In fact, their stay has been extended, I think. There are no issues with that. Ukraine will always exist. There are trolls writing here. Agreed. It's unclear when this will end. How many beneficiaries are there in this slaughter? A lot. Everything is very complicated and neglected. That's why Trump is making a huge effort. And from our side, we should definitely only help and support him, because he is the only one who can resolve this issue. No one else. No one else is dealing with this. And all of Europe, which only pretends to be doing something as if it can help, is actually in a difficult situation itself. The economies of Germany, France, and Italy are all in question there. And I think that to get out of this quagmire, it's necessary to leave the European Union. And Elon Musk, wrote about Ireland, saying that Ireland doesn't need the European Union. Right now, by the way, he supports Tommy Robinson. He's a British patriot who has long been fighting against the Islamization of England. He was even imprisoned for that. Now he's been released. Elon Musk gives him full support. Imagine that a figure like Tommy Robinson will sooner or later appear in Ukraine as well, who will receive not only Elon Musk's support, but also the backing of the entire conservative wing of Trump's team. And that will be a very powerful force. And it won't be about money or oligarchs. Everything will be decided differently. About the USA, yes, democracy is when everyone lives well at the expense of others. Democracy is an imperfect system. I'll post what democracy really is. Democracy is a tool to always stay in power and to take from people who produce something, whether it's a product or a service, and give it to freeloaders who do nothing, but only go into politics, having created nothing, first as Komsomol members, then becoming communists and robbing the people. They don't know how to do anything else. All they can do is take away, divide, and then send you off to war. That's it. That's their principle of action.